Hello everyone. Today we are going to learn how to single crochet a washcloth. So if you've been following along in the series, we first started out with learning a slip knot, and then we learned how to chain, and then we learned the single crochet stitch. And all of this has been taught left-handed. So if you're left-handed, I'm glad that you're here. And so the next logical step is to try to make something. We have learned everything we need to learn to make a washcloth, a scarf, a blanket even if you wanted. But I would suggest starting out small. That way you can fix your mistakes as you go and just kind of get practice. Like I said, this is just practice. It's a great way to practice your single crochets and to come out with something useful. So this is what it's going to look like when we get finished. This is a single crochet washcloth. We're going to chain 21 chains across and then turn back around and chain back 20, 20, 20, 20. And we're going to keep going until we have 24 rows with 20 single crochets in each row. And I know that the chains are 21, and then the next row, which is your single crochet, is actually 20, and I'll explain that when we get there. But for now, let's talk about the supplies that you'll need. You will need a cotton yarn, 100% cotton yarn, and I prefer, some cotton yarns are better than others. Some of them have a tendency to split while you're trying to work with them, and I don't think they would be very good for a beginner project. But one that I have found that is relatively inexpensive is the Walmart brand Mainstay 100% cotton yarn, and this is in the color of blue shell. They have several different colors. And so you'll need 100% cotton yarn. That way, anything that you're making that's going to get wet, like clothing, washcloths, things like that, you want it to be 100% cotton yarn if possible. You'll need a pair of scissors. Now these are just my little fancy crochet scissors with a nice little point. I got these at Walmart as well, but any pair of scissors will do, especially for today. And then you'll need maybe a crochet needle. Now, if you notice, this is like a very thick needle. It's much bigger than, say, a needle and thread that a needle you would use for thread. And it has a nice little bend at the end, which comes in comes in handy when you're trying to weave in your ends. But if you don't have a needle, that's okay too. We can use a crochet hook to weave in our ends. So don't worry about that. I just like to show you what that is if you ever wanted to get one, because eventually they do come in handy and you will need one. Okay, let's start this washcloth. So the first thing we're going to do is get our yarn going. You set that aside for now. We'll leave it there so we can see it. Like I said, there's usually a better way to pull this out at the end. There we go. Nope. Well, we're just going to open it. And as far as the size hook that we need, this one says it's a medium, it's a 4-weight yarn, and for crochet, the icon is 1 hook for crochet. It says 5 millimeters, so that's what I have here is a 5 millimeter yarn. So what you want to do is pull out a little bit of yarn, and the first thing we're going to do is make a slip knot. So to do that, you're going to put the yarn that's coming out of your skein in your right hand, and your left hand leave about, I don't know, 6 inches or so. That way we have enough of a tail that we can weave in the ends. And then wrap that yarn around your finger, and then take the yarn that's in your left hand and push it through that loop you just made. Pull it through, not all the way, but pull it through until you have a nice loop. Pull it tight. And then we're going to take our left hand and pull that tail down just a little bit. I'm going to stick my needle in there, make sure that it's just a little bit snug, but I still have some wiggle room. Okay, and now the first thing we're going to do is chain 21 chains. So to chain, we're just going to make sure you got some good tension there, and we're going to go under, pull the yarn through, That's 1. Under, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Kind of hold that below as you go. That's what makes it difficult. 7, 8, 9, 10. And if my counting is messing you up, feel free to pause or mute the video until we've got our 21 chains. So I'm at 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, keeping that yarn loose enough that we can get that in there. 15. Oh, I just lost count. Oh my goodness. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. That was 16. See, that is why it's really hard for me to talk and count at the same time. But again, I'll explain really quickly how to count your chains, because you will need to know that, especially if you lose count. So if you notice, I see each one of these chains looks like a little bit of a V. So I just count the V's. See, you can almost, you can tell they're very distinctive. So just count the V's. We're at 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and we're going to do one more. That will be our chain. That will be our chain to turn the row. 21. So you should have 21 chains on your that you've created, and this is a great time to go back and recount, because you want to make sure that it's correct. I know we're just practicing here, but I'm going to recount just to make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Okay, 21 chains. So now what we want to do is, you'll see that there is, you can see this. This is the loop that's on our hook. We don't count that. This loop right here is the 21st chain. We're going to skip that one, and we're going to put our needle into this next chain. So we're going to skip the chain that our loop is coming out of, and we're going to put our needle into this next chain and do a single crochet. Okay? Go into this loop here, go under, pull some yarn through that loop, pull up a little bit, and now you have 2 loops on your yarn. Under and pull through both loops. That's a single crochet. That's 1. We're going to go, basically you're going through the V, okay? So we're going to go through that V, under, pull through, under, and pull through both loops. That's 2. Through the V, right through the middle. 3. Through the V, pull through. That's 4. And as you can see, you should have 4 V's on top, which we do. Sometimes this is the hardest part, because it's really not a lot to grab onto. I usually use some of the fingers in my left hand to hold the work I've done, and I'll use some of the fingers in my right hand to hold the chain and the string, the yarn, to get the tension. So it's a lot to do with your hands, but I promise the more you practice, by the time you're finished with this washcloth, you'll be able to, feel a lot more comfortable with how you hold things, okay? So we are at 4 single crochets. We're going to keep going through that V. 5, 6. My yarn. Every now and then you kind of have to stop and pull that yarn. It always helps to pull a lot out for a bit. That way you can concentrate on what you're doing, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And as you're going, you'll notice that sometimes these loops pull up a little bit. That's quite okay. It will all resolve after our next couple of rounds, okay? 10, 11, through that V, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. We have 2 more. 19. And this last one, it's kind of hard to tell. Everything gets kind of wonky, but we're going to find the middle of that V, pull our loop through, and pull through both loops. 20. So this is what 20 single crochets look like. This is a perfect time to go back and count if you feel like that maybe if you can see a hole or somewhere where maybe you missed a stitch. The best thing to do is to pull the yarn on your through your right hand and to pull out your work up to the point of where the mistake is. And I know it's a pain to do that. Nobody wants to do all that work and then have to pull it out. But trust me, it's better to go ahead and pull it out now because if you don't, as you continue on, that mistake will repeat all the way through the project. So take care of it now if you can, and go back and make sure you have 20 chains. Okay. So the next thing we want to do is we want to start our next row of single crochet. And to do that, we're going to chain 1. And now we're going to turn our work. And now we want to make sure that we go into the next loop, which is not the loop that's going around our hook. So I don't know if you can see, it's not this loop that's going around the hook. We're going to go right into this section here, which is under the V. Okay, so when you're going through your chain, you're going through the middle of the V. But now as you go through your single crochets, because we're going to start this row on top of that last row of single crochets. So from here on out, you're going to go under the V so that you have you can see the 2 loops on top, okay? You can see that V on top. And there's a little hole there. You can kind of find it as you go. And so we're going to skip this, skip the loop, skip the chain that our loop is in, and we're going to stick our needle into the next one, which is under that V. Grab some yarn, pull through, grab some yarn and pull through both loops. Okay, that's 1. And as we go across, we should have 20 by the time we get to the end, okay? So we're going to go under the V. There's the V's on top. Pull through. And pull through 2. Under the V, I always like to just turn around, double check, and make sure I've got both V's on top of my needle. Pull some yarn through. Under, pull through both. Okay. So far, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 V's. So 4 stitches. We're going to keep going under those V's. 5. 6. 7. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, pull some more yarn in the hole under the V's, 14, 15, 16, 17, under the V, have 2 loops, grab some yarn and pull through both loops. That's 18, 19, and this last one is always a little bit difficult. Sometimes that last V is kind of curved around to the knot, so it is right here, because sometimes you have to dig for it. If your stitches are tight, you really have to push that needle through, but this is what it should look like. That's the V that we're going to go under. Sometimes it's easier to just stick your needle in there first to get to it. We're going to go under, pull through both. So before we continue, now we have 2 single crochets, 2 rows of single crochets starting to come together a little bit. I want to show you a couple, like if you were to mess up, these are common mistakes, and I want to show you how to fix them, because I think that's the hardest part sometimes, is that you know, inevitably we're all going to make a mistake, but then we don't know how to fix it, and we're kind of dead in the water. So let's say that you were working on something, or your needle accidentally slipped out, and then now it looks like this. Now you have two loops sticking out, and you don't know what to do. Well, you always want to just pull out until you have 1 loop. And as you can see, this side is taller than this side, and it's brought you back to where you are, which is going back under that next V. But now this just applies in single crochet. If you were doing another stitch, you may have more than 1 loop sticking out. But for single crochet, you always want to get back to that 1 loop on top of that V. See, here's our V, and the loop is coming out of the V. That's what you want. So if let's say, you know, you'll either have it correct, or you'll have this, which is 2 V's. You've got 2 loops. You've got 1 loop coming out from underneath the V, and the other loop coming out through the V. And you always want to start back to where the loop is coming through the V. So to get rid of this loop, just pull the yarn until it breaks free, and then you're back to the 1 loop. Whoops. You're back to the 1 loop coming out of the center of the V's on top. Okay, so and the same applies if you feel like you missed a stitch, you know, you missed a V somewhere along the row. Just pull the yarn back out until you get back to a good starting point, and then you can fix your mistake and move on. Do it now, even though you don't want to. Okay, we're gonna go back under that V, pull through, under, pull through. Last one. Push it in there, go under, pull through. Okay, so this is what it looks like with 2 rows of single crochet. And what we want to do is continue each row until we have 24 rows. If you lose count of your rows, don't worry about it, because I'm going to show you how to count your rows when you're finished. So I'm going to do 1 more row of single crochets with you, and then I'll pause the video and finish the rest out, and then I'll meet back up with you on the very last row. So what you always want to remember is After you finish that last single crochet, you want to chain one, okay? You want to make sure you do that at the end of every row. So we put in our last single crochet, we chain one, and then we turn the work around so we can start again. And again, make sure you skip that very first loop, and we're going to go into this loop. We're going to go underneath the V, okay? See if I can show you again. I know this is can be very confusing for people because it all looks the same, but this is our loop. This is the V that the loop is coming out of. We do not want to go in there. We're going to go into this next V right here, which is, we're going to go right under that next V, okay? So skip the first one, right under this next one. One, two. If you crochet tightly, then you'll notice it's a little bit harder to get into these, to get under those V's. So just kind of push through and maybe try to chain a little, or try to crochet just a little bit looser. That will help you for the next time. Pull up if you need to get enough space to pull that yarn through those loops. Four, five, under the V, 6, we just keep going. Under the V, checking our work, making sure we haven't missed anything. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We are at 10. 11. Under, pull through, under, pull through. 12. 13. Pull the yarn if you need to get some more out of the skein. Take your time. We're just doing this to practice those single crochet. $18. 19. Okay, we're at the very last one. Now, as you can see, this right here is the knot. And the V is always right before that knot. It's not really a knot, but you know what I mean. So that, we want to go under right there, right before the knot, but under the V's. Or under the V, I should say, just one V. So again, you might have to fight for that one. Go under, pull through both. And then the next thing you do before you do anything else is chain one. And now you're ready to turn your work and go to the next row. Again, if another common mistake is if you end up getting more than 20, let's say you've miscounted and you're at 21 or 22, and then as you do the next row, you're going to do 21 or 22. And then what is going to happen is your work is going to start going like this. And instead of you having nice straight lines, it's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Also, sometimes what happens if you miss a stitch or two and then you turn around and say, let's say you end up in the next, because you've missed some stitch in this row, you turn around and the next row only has maybe 18 stitches. But you don't realize it and you keep going, then your work is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller as you go up. So it's very important, especially in the beginning. As you get more practice, you'll be able to tell, that everything is going correctly, and you may not have to count. But I would just really encourage you to count as you go, especially in the beginning. So let's do one more. one more row together. We've already chained one, so I'm going to turn my work. I'm going to go into that second loop under the V's, pull up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, last one, kind of dig for it before the knot. Make sure you got those V's on top. 20. What do we do next? We chain one. Chain one, turn our work. And look at that, it's coming together. So what I would do is just go ahead and keep practicing that row for row. And I'll show you really quickly how to count your rows, and then we'll do a double count again when we get back. So as you continue to build each row, you'll start to notice that, let's see if I can find, this side's better. So you see these little horizontal imprint lines? You can almost tell they're like, it's like here, 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 here. I think it's very distinctive. And it's on this side too. Maybe this side's even better, I'm not sure. So it goes here, 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 here. So you want to find the side. Let's see. So this side, you can tell it has just a little bit of a curl here at the bottom. That's your original chain stitch. And this row seems to look a little bit different than the rest of these sections. So if you can find that side, flip it over. And now you'll notice that it looks like the section here is about the same height as the section here, section here. And so each of these sections is 2 rows. So I think it makes it easy to count because of the line. So this is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24. And that's how you can tell, that's how you can count your rows. There's other ways. If you can find a distinctive feature in the row itself, then, you know, sometimes that helps. Like some people notice these little V's right off the bat. Let me see if I can get closer so you guys can really see what I'm talking about. So see, now that I get closer, you can really see these lines. See, it goes here, here, here. So the number of rows between these 2 lines are 2 rows. So you can count, you know, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and so on. If you're looking for another feature, sometimes people notice these little divots. Okay. That will be, again, every other, you'll see a divot every other row because, you know, we turn our work and the divot will be on the other side. So just find something distinctive. I think with single crochet, the lines are the most distinctive. And again, it takes 2 rows and then there's a line, 2 rows, and then there's a line. So again, that's why I made this washcloth an even number of rows, so it would just be easier to count. But since this is a washcloth, honestly, you could keep going and just kind of eyeball it if you want. If you think, okay, well now it looks like a square, or maybe you want it to be a rectangle, you can keep going a little bit and just finish off whenever you want. So that's the beauty of creating something like this, is especially like this, or a scarf, or even a blanket. You can almost keep going until it visually looks okay. Especially with single crochets. With other stitches, you may not get that luxury, but with a single crochet, you do. So we're going to keep. We've already chained one on this row, so all we have to do, and turn your work, so all you have to do is keep going and do 20 single crochets, chain one, turn your work, do 20 single crochets, and just keep going until you get most of the washcloth done, or until you feel like you are on row 23, and then we can do the last row together, okay? I'm gonna pause this video and finish this out, and I'll meet you back at the end, okay? Okay, welcome back. How did you do? If you've made it this far, I'm really proud of you, because learning something new is really challenging sometimes. And if you were able to make it 23 rows of single crochet, you've done a great job. So now we're going to finish on this very last row. And I got to thinking, you know, maybe you've lost track of the rows, but you know, you're finished with this project. You can always get a little tape measure and just kind of measure what you have if you still want it to look relatively square. So this is about a 6 1/4 inch wide. And so we're going to do one more row, and it'll be about 6 1/4 inch wide. It's pretty close. I think mine is going to measure, when it's finished, probably closer to 6. It just depends on how tight you crochet. And you know, if you're using a 5mm hook, you may be using something bigger or smaller, but you've made it this far. We're going to finish this baby up. I'm on my last row. So I've got 23 rows, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, and this is 23. We're going to do, I've already chained, so we're going to do this last row of 20 single crochets across. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I'm sorry if I'm going too fast. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Oh, I gotta fight for that last one. 20. Okay, so for the last row, you're not going to chain, okay? You're just gonna leave it at 20. And if we like the way this looks, then it's time to cut the yarn. I know that can be a scary thing, but I like the way this looks. I think I know I have 24 rows. This side is actually prettier. I think one side is usually prettier than the other, but that's it. So what we're going to do, okay, so you did not chain, you ended on that single crochet, and now we're going to cut the yarn. I usually allow maybe 4 or 5 inches, and I cut the yarn. Yeah, it's finished now because that yarn is cut. I'm hoping in the next video or two, I'm going to show you how to join yarn. So maybe you want to switch colors, you know, and you want to do a couple rows one color, a couple rows another color. I'm going to show you how to do that. But for now, what you're going to do is we're going to act like we're going to do a chain. So we're going to pull that yarn through, but instead of making a loop, we're going to pull it all the way through. So we're going to go under and pull through and pull it all the way through, and then just tighten it off. And that's it. Now we have a little knot. to tighten off our project. So now we have these tails that need to be woven in. And like I mentioned, you can either use a crochet needle. These things are great. They have, I'm not sure if you can see this, but they have a really big eye on them. So it makes getting the thread through that eye so easy. And what you do is you just pull the thread a little bit through. You don't have to tie a knot on here or anything like that. You don't want to do that, actually. And then I'm going to, usually I like to weave in. You can weave the end this way, the way you've come, or you can weave in the opposite of the stitches, which is what I like to do, down the side. And you just kind of randomly go in and out with your needle. And that's when this angled needle comes in really handy, because it makes it really easy to weave in and out. And then you don't have to go super far. I mean, I think this is going to stay in place. And then I'm just going to pull it through. And now our end is weaved in, and then I'm going to cut this tail off here since we're already weaved in really well. Now be very careful not to cut any of your existing loops, because if you accidentally cut one of your loops, that's it. The whole project will unravel, and there's not really a good way to fix it. So, you know, just be very careful. Cut as close as you can, but not any loops. And now you just can't hardly even see it. So that's how to weave it in with a crochet needle. And I'm going to show you how to weave it in. If you don't have a needle, just weave it in with your hook. This is kind of the same concept. I like to weave down this end, but you can weave this end too. And what I do is I usually just kind of stick my needle in and out of just random places, in and out. You might have to go through some of the bigger holes since you have a crochet needle. Okay, so now we've gone through several. Now this is the tricky part. You want to grab that yarn with your needle, and we're going to try to get it and pull it through all these loops. You may have to play with it a little bit, or just go through one at a time. And you can do that. You can just go through one at a time if you want. Kind of like to get it all done in one fell swoop, but sometimes it's not always the easiest. And then pull that out a little bit. Sometimes it's easier. Pull it with your fingers. Stretch it out. And you can kind of see where I've weaved it in. And that's it. You cut your string. If you don't feel like that's quite as secure, then maybe go in a different direction. Weave in a different direction. And that usually does the trick. And then we're going to cut this off. Now, if you notice that your end is still coming loose, after you've washed this a few times and used it, they do make a product. Now, I've tried to find it and link it in the description below, but they make a product that you can just basically put on the end of your yarn, and it will kind of glue it in place, but you can't even see it. It's clear, and it doesn't have any real texture to it. So it's almost like an invisible glue, and maybe that's what it's called. I'm not sure. But anyway, you guys, you finished a washcloth. I'm really proud of you. That's awesome. If it looks a little wonky, it's okay. You finished it, and you learned and practiced a lot of single crochets in the process. So I would suggest hanging on to this, even if you don't like the way it turned out, just hanging on to it, because you're going to look back in a little bit and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I have really improved so much, because those mistakes are learning. It's a learning process, and it's good to have a mistake every now and then, but you'll be so proud of how far you've come in a year, in 6 months, in 2 months, looking back on your very first project. Okay, I'm really proud of you guys, and hope to see you in the next video. Thanks.